Imagine standing in a courtroom, the weight of your entire life pressing down on your shoulders, and the person judging you not only doubts your story but mocks you in front of everyone. That's exactly where Daniel Hayes, a single dad and Army veteran, found himself one cold morning in a small town courthouse. But what nobody in that room knew, not even the sharp-tongued judge herself, was that Daniel once stood on the other side of that bench, as one of the most brilliant legal minds this state had ever seen. What made him give it all up? And why was he back here now, alone, fighting for his daughter's future? Stay with me till the end, you'll never forget what happened when the truth came out. And if stories like this inspire you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because you won't want to miss what's next. The courtroom was packed. The sound of papers rustling and the faint hum of whispers filled the air. Judge Marlene Davenport adjusted her glasses, looking down over the bench with the practiced authority of someone who had seen too many lost causes. Mr. Hayes, she said with a hint of irritation, you're representing yourself in this custody hearing. Daniel stood tall, his army posture unbroken despite his wrinkled shirt and scuffed shoes. Yes, Your Honor. I can't afford counsel right now. The judge sighed dramatically. Of course. And let me guess, you think you can just wing it, because you watched some TV legal drama. This court doesn't have time for amateurs. Laughter rippled through the courtroom. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He glanced toward the back, where his 8-year-old daughter Lily sat clutching her small backpack, watching him with wide, trusting eyes. He wasn't here for pride. He was here for her. Across the aisle, his ex-wife's attorney smirked, a polished, young hotshot from one of the city's biggest firms. Your Honor, the man said smoothly, we'd be happy to proceed. My client simply wants what's best for the child, stability, structure. And frankly, a father with no job and no home isn't stability. Daniel took a slow breath. The words stung, not because they were lies, but because they carried pieces of a truth he'd been running from. After returning from Afghanistan, PTSD and bills had torn through his life like a storm. He'd left his law firm, his career, believing he could rebuild quietly. But fate had other plans. The judge looked unimpressed. Mr. Hayes, do you have any evidence to support your ability to care for your daughter? Daniel reached into a worn folder. Inside were letters, recommendations, old legal briefs, even commendations from his time in service. But as he laid them on the table, Judge Davenport barely glanced at them. Military service is admirable, she said coolly, but it doesn't make someone fit to raise a child. A murmur spread through the courtroom. Even the bailiff looked uncomfortable. Daniel clenched his fists. For the first time in years, he felt the old fire rise, the one he used to feel in courtrooms before the war. He looked up, steady and calm. Your Honor, he said quietly, with all due respect, I understand the law more than you think. I wrote half of the state's case precedent you're referencing right now. The courtroom went silent. Judge Davenport blinked. Excuse me. Daniel straightened. Before I enlisted, I was an attorney. Daniel J. Hayes. Partner at McNeil & Price. Recognition flickered in the room. Even the opposing attorney froze. Wait, he said, his voice shaking slightly, you're that Daniel Hayes. You won the Peterson case, the one they still teach in law schools. The judge's confident mask faltered. That can't be. You left the bar years ago. I did, Daniel said, his voice low. Because my wife was sick. Because my country called. Because I thought some things mattered more than winning cases. He opened the folder again, revealing a faded photo, him in uniform, holding Lily as a baby, and his late wife smiling beside them. All I've ever tried to do is protect the people I love. I'm not perfect. But don't tell me I don't know what stability means. The judge sat back, silent now. The room was still. Even the opposing attorney lowered his eyes. Daniel began to question each piece of evidence his ex-wife's lawyer had presented, calmly but surgically, citing laws, precedents, and procedures with the ease of a man who once ruled the courtroom floor. Within minutes, the young lawyer was fumbling his notes. By the time Daniel finished, the atmosphere had completely shifted. Even Judge Davenport's expression had softened from disdain to quiet respect. After a long pause, she leaned forward. Mr. Hayes, she said finally, I owe you an apology. It seems I underestimated you, and your devotion as a father. Daniel nodded humbly. We all make assumptions, Your Honor. I've made plenty myself. The judge smiled faintly. I'm reinstating full custody to Mr. Hayes, effective immediately. Lily let out a little cry of joy, running to hug her father. The courtroom burst into applause, something that never happened in Judge Davenport's court. Even she smiled through a sheen of tears. Outside, under the autumn sunlight, Daniel knelt down and hugged Lily tight. See, baby girl, he whispered. Never let anyone tell you that your story's over. Sometimes, you just have to remind them who you really are. As they walked down the courthouse steps hand in hand, a local reporter approached him. Mr. Hayes, will you return to law? People would line up to have you represent them. Daniel looked down at Lily, then back up with a calm smile. Maybe one day. But right now, I've got one client who needs me more than anyone else, my daughter.